We've all heard the phrase take ownership, but few people have actually built a global powerhouse on that exact philosophy. Today's guest didn't just inherit a leadership seat, she transformed the company culture into one where every single person thinks like a founder. She is the CEO of Stone Age, a world class keynote speaker, and the author of The Ownership Mindset. Please welcome Kerry Siggins.
Thank you, Simon. I'm so glad to be here.
Kerry, what is this ownership thing? Does it mean everybody just works more?
No, that's not what it means, but it does mean that everybody thinks and acts like an owner. So we are an employee-owned company. Stone Age has been employee-owned for, oh gosh, well, since the mid 90s. We became a formal, what's called an ESOP, an employee stock ownership plan, in 2015, and every employee owns shares of the company, and that's a great thing. They get to share in the value that they are bringing to the company, and it is a way to meaningfully create wealth. But it only can be done if you create a culture where people understand what it means to think and act like an owner, feel safe to think and act like an owner, and take that kind of responsibility. So that's what our culture is really based on.
And you change the structure, you change the incentives. That's why everybody
Yes,
acts like an owner because they are an owner. Makes sense.
exactly. They are an owner.
Now, you shifted from being a leader to being the CEO. How was that transition?
Oh gosh, it was interesting. It was a little unexpected. So I came to Stone Age when I was 28, and I was hired as the director of operations. And really, the founders were looking for someone to take over the company. They were actually interviewing for a general manager, and they decided to give me the title of director of operations because I wasn't qualified to be a general manager. I hadn't actually run a company before, but they saw so much potential in me that they took this huge risk and hired me. And the president and one of the founders of the company, his name is John, he said, okay, let's be on a 5-year program to get you to general manager. And I will mentor you and help you learn the industry and help you learn how to build a company. And so that was what was in my mind. I'm a 5-year plan to go from director of operations to a general manager. And I started just diving in. I started owning it, not really fully understanding that that's what I was doing, at least not with the intentionality that I have today. And a year after I started, he said, well, I bought a boat and I want to go sail off the coast of the US and go around down the Mississippi. So I'm going to promote you into general manager, and you're going to do a great job. And so now I'm a year in, I'm 29 at this point, and I said, okay. And my mentor is gone. He can only be reached by a satellite phone in the middle of the ocean sometimes. And that was when the 2008, 2009 financial crisis hit. And so I had to figure that out. I wouldn't say all on my own, but without his daily support and being able to bounce ideas off of him. And we got through that crisis incredibly well. And so at the end of 2009, when we knew that things were turning around and 2010 was looking like it was going to be an exceptional year, that's when he said, I want you to be CEO. Instead of reporting to me as the president of the company, I want you to report to the board and really start building out the board of the future. And so that was a 3-year period. So that is how I got from not having any experience running a company, really even managing people. I was always an individual contributor, even though I'm a natural born leader, into a CEO in 3 years.
Wow. In your book, you define ownership and you say we have to get out of the victim mentality. Now,
Mhm.
what are the weak signals that we can look for in our own head? Uh, right now, all of us have probably some victim patterns when we talk with ourselves. How can we recognize them quickly?
The biggest clue is when you say, yeah, but.
Mm.
I would have done that, but I could have gotten further, but I would have come up with that idea, but when we say but to justify where we are, our actions, our decisions, the words that come out of our mouth, whatever situation you're in, that is your clue that you are in a victim mentality. True ownership is saying, yes, I missed this deadline, and here's what I'm going to do to fix it. Not, yes, I missed that deadline, but here are the reasons why. And so, radical responsibility, radical ownership, this idea of the ownership mindset is I'm responsible for everything that happens in my life. Things don't happen to me, they happen because of me and they happen through me. And so when you stop making excuses, when you stop saying but behind your, accountability, even owning it, that is how you get yourself out of a victim mentality. So that's the fastest, the easiest way to get started is when are you justifying the situation? When are you justifying your actions? The ownership mindset doesn't require justification. It requires just owning it.
What's the practice to get there?
It starts with self-awareness. I think everything in life is around self-awareness. And you have to know yourself and understand your wounds and understand the reasons why you want to protect yourself. Because when we don't take ownership, it's almost always because we're trying to protect something. We're trying to protect our image. We think we're going to get fired. There's fear. We don't want to be embarrassed. We think people are going to laugh at us, talk about us, all those different stories that we tell ourselves. And so the practice for deep ownership is it is self-awareness. It is understanding. Okay, so I'll give you an example. My wound, well, I think the collective humanity's wound is I am not enough, but it manifests itself in different ways. So my I am not enough is around, it manifests itself in image management. How are people seeing me? What do people think of me? And proving myself. Do I deserve a seat at this table? And so when I feel something brush up against one of those two things, people are going to look poorly at me, or they're going to say I'm not a great leader, or I have to do this because I have to prove myself. Those are when I start to feel that protect and defend mode. And the practice is the awareness of when those are happening and being kind to yourself. Like this is a lifetime of work, this self-awareness work, this developing and mastering the own it mindset. But the practice is in the awareness in every moment of, am I owning this or am I deflecting? Am I owning this or am I armoring up and protecting myself? Am I owning this or am I making an excuse so that I can manage people's perception of me? So it starts with self-awareness, and then it starts with paying attention to the words that are coming out of your mouth, and then being kind to yourself when you mess up. Because even me, with all this practice, I still find myself wanting to justify things. And then I pause and think, okay, I do not need to justify this. And I'm going to change the words that are coming out of my mouth, or I'm going to stop saying it so that I am just continuously reinforcing I am not a victim. So I think that's the foundation of the practice.
And the
Great
hardest
question, by the
part,
way.
yeah, the hardest part, because we are in the middle of this. I have 3 kids. We are having these conversations all the time. Like, I've been lying. Do I say it right now? How do I say it? Will you still love me if I say it?
Yes.
All this, or will you get mad if I say it? And the work is accepting, right? Okay, I have to accept in the first place that I am a liar for that millisecond, right? It's not
Yeah.
forever, but in that
Yes.
moment, I have to accept, guys, I'm a liar. I'm your dad, but I lied. It's not 2 p.m., it's 2:15 p.m. I lied.
Yeah.
And that process of accepting is so vulnerable.
Yes, it is. It really is. I think it comes down to, I think everything comes down to identity. What do we believe about ourselves? Like our identity is what we believe about ourselves consciously and subconsciously. And when we can start to bring the subconscious to the conscious level, I think acceptance is far easier. I did not understand how my I'm not good enough. I need to make sure people like me so that I feel like I'm good enough, made me want to manage other people's emotions. And managing other people's emotions meant that I softened the truth,
Mm.
or I just stayed silent, or um, I took over. I was too responsible for how they would feel about something, instead of just laying it out there and then saying, you own your feelings. And I had no real awareness around why I was doing this. I thought I was just being kind, being nice. And when I brought that from the subconscious to the conscious, then I could start saying, okay, here's why I do this. I could start to accept it. And so that's why this work is really powerful. But it makes you feel bad about yourself, right? When you have to say in that moment, like, okay, I'm a liar right now, or I am trying to prove myself, or I am managing the perception because I want people to look at me a certain way. You kind of like, ugh, I don't like that. But the work is in embracing the ickiness, because then you can do something about it.
And you just gave me something to think about. You said when we think we're being polite or trying to be polite, trying to be nice to somebody, we are actually committing to managing their emotions,
Mhm.
which is a
Yes.
whole different package. And we probably don't want to do, and we probably cannot even do. It's not in our control, right?
No. So this is the topic of my second book. I am writing a book that's coming out in September. It's called Talk with Trust, and it's all around how do you give feedback in a way that builds relationships, where you say what needs to be said in a kind, direct, and helpful way. But here's the thing, is that you can deliver a message perfectly, but you have no control over how that person is going to receive it. And they might protect and defend because it brushes up against their wound of I am not enough. And maybe they haven't done the self-awareness work of like, ooh, okay, this stings, this feels icky, and I'm going to understand why, instead of blaming the person who's delivering the message. You could also completely blow the feedback. You could screw it up, you could do it all the wrong ways. But if the other person is a person who always looks for a way to own something in the feedback, is curious, and is in a growth mindset, and has done the work so they don't protect and defend, the feedback can land even when it's poorly delivered. So we can only control what we do. We can control our words. We can control, how we want to show up in a situation, how we're going to respond or react to another person, but we cannot take responsibility for other people's spaces. And I think that this is the crux of it. In fact, I was just recording a solo podcast episode for my podcast on this idea of contribution in a workplace, because there is a contract that is signed, whether you sign a real employment contract or not. There's a contract that is signed when someone hires you. Okay, I am going to pay you to do this job, and you are going to gain experience, you're going to gain money, you're going to, gain opportunities to grow. And this is a mutual contract, and it requires both people to contribute. And when we are in this place where people don't understand what that contribution is, and they are in the blame, the victim mentality, it can create a really ugly culture. And we can have leaders who create a really ugly culture too, where there is no psychological safety. And so this correction that we've had in the last 5 years, really since COVID, around creating a more psychologically safe workplace that allows people to be themselves, allows us to understand that people have their traumas and they're bringing those wounds to work, that's a really good thing. But what happens, and where this goes wrong, is when we start to soften feedback because we don't want to create the tension, because we don't want to brush up against their trauma, or when we avoid conflict because we think that that's going to cause discomfort, and like somehow discomfort is harmful. And that is not true. We are meant to be in discomfort as humans. We are meant to learn and grow, and that is uncomfortable. And so that is this contract that we have as an employee and an employer, and where the ownership mindset really comes in is understanding my contribution. And yes, we can create a workplace that is psychologically safe and that cares about people, and we can still expect people to do their jobs, right? To not lean into the workplace drama and the conflict and come self lead through their trauma. And this is the complexity of what we're dealing with. And I feel like maybe we overcorrected a little bit more towards trauma based leadership, trauma informed leadership, which I think that there's a lot of good things there, but we still have to allow our employees to be uncomfortable. And that can be when there's giving tough feedback. It's okay to let them hurt. Getting tough feedback does hurt. You don't have to own it. You don't have to take responsibility for it. As a leader, you need to be able to say, I'm going to give you some tough feedback today. I understand it hurts. And I am here to support you as you integrate this feedback. But it's up to you. That is so powerful. That is ownership. It's you saying what needs to be said in a kind way, a direct way, and a helpful way, acknowledging that it might be hard for them to hear and they're going to have to process it, but still having the boundary that it's theirs to own. And that is such powerful, powerful work.
How did writing your book change you?
In so many ways, big and small. I've always been a writer. And I went to engineering school. I was debating between going to engineering school and to journalism school. And I chose engineering school, which was completely the right choice. But I have this love for writing. And what I have learned about myself, no matter what I've done in my life, whether it was, captain of the softball team in high school and college, to being a self-leader in companies that I worked for as an individual contributor, to where I am at Stone Age now, is that my words activate, whether spoken or written. And so what writing the book really allowed me to do is to fine tune what my message is and how I'm going to use my words to activate people. And so it was this practice that I had to get into of finding the right words. Like, what is it that I really want to say? And when people read this, what is it that I want them to remember about themselves? And so it really sharpened my thinking and it helped me.
We froze for a second here. So, guys, if you're listening, this is Kerry Siggins, and her book is The Ownership Mindset, in case you want to go and look for it while we wait for Kerry to unfreeze.
People say, okay, write 500 words a day. Like, I can't write 500 words a day. I need to get into the flow. So I had to do it in big chunks. And so that is, that discipline is something that I really learned about myself as I wrote the book.
Besides your own book, what is one book that you are gifting away the most?
Oh gosh, okay. So I love to read and I gift lots of books, but the one that I have been talking about the most recently is one that was written years ago, but it has transformed how I think about strategy, and that is Good Strategy, Bad Strategy by Rumfelt. I can't, Robert Rumfelt. I don't think it's Robert, but Rumfelt is his last name.
Yeah.
Richard, thank you. I knew it was an
Okay.
R. I love, love, love that methodology for thinking through strategy. It helps you focus on the trade-offs that you have to make. What is the strategic decision and what trade-offs are you making to really focus the company? I bet I have recommended it at least a dozen times in the last 2 weeks.
It's a great book.
So Richard, you're welcome.
Thanks, Richard. What is one thing you have learned to say no to in the last year that has changed you?
This is a more general answer than a specific one, but I've gotten really clear on what I'm available for and what I'm not available for. And being a person who is driven to add value and to help people and to also try to manage what people think about me, I always overcommitted, and I never stopped to ask myself, is this really what I want? And I just went through a divorce. My divorce was final at the end of 2025. And 2025 was one of the most transformational years for me, because I really sat down and I looked at why my marriage ran its course. I don't say it was a failed marriage because it just ran its course, and what I wanted to do differently going forward. And I realized that, I mean, was with my ex-husband for 17 years. I was so young when I met him that I never was really clear on the things that I was available for and I wasn't available for. And then I could see how that spilled over into my leadership and into, my friendships and things like that. So I got really clear on these are the things I'm available for and this is what I'm not available for. And saying no to those things that I am not available for. And it could be people with negative energy, or it could be committing to something that doesn't align with the three most important things in my life right now. But having that list of this is what I'm not available for makes it so much easier to say no to the things that might suck your energy, whether that is a commitment or a person or an energy or an idea. And so that is what I've really learned about myself and what I've been saying no to this past year.
And while I'm listening, I was like, oh, I have to make a list of what I'm not available for and what I'm available for. And then I'm thinking, but then I become very rigid, right? You didn't have that experience. It's okay to make that list. It didn't make you rigid. It makes you actually more clear and more open for what you really
Yes.
need.
Freer. I am freer because of it, because I am not doing things that suck my energy, that things that are not in alignment. Like my whole life, everything that I am working towards is coherence, right? Coherence is when you are making decisions, living your life in alignment with your values, your energy, your goals. And when you are in coherence, things things are just so much easier. You feel so much better about yourself. Your nervous system is so much more regulated. When you start bringing in things that pull you out of coherence, like a commitment that makes you feel resentful, or having a person in your life who just constantly complains and complains and complains and sucks your energy, those things pull you out of coherence and it dysregulates your nervous system. So it did not make me more rigid. It brought me clarity and it keeps me in coherence. And I am a happier, freer person when I'm in coherence because everything is just flowing instead of like having this like nagging thing that's over here that I don't really want to do, but I have to do it because I made this commitment, or whatever the situation is.
So, one question we can apply is asking ourselves, and the listeners right now asking ourselves, is this incoherence? Am I living in coherence? How do you see if it's coherent or define it?
So for me, because I am a kinesthetic energy person, I feel it in my body and I feel it through like being tense. And so that is when I can tell like, okay, this is not in alignment. I'm feeling tense about this. And so for you, it might be something that's different. But I think that every human, our bodies are like this beacon. It is an antenna and it tells us everything that we need to know if we listen. So an easy thing to do is when you're feeling like, okay, this doesn't feel like it's in alignment with what I want, then you can just stop and close your eyes and take a deep breath. And it's like, where am I feeling this in my body? What feels tight in my body? And if you're feeling like tightness, in your neck, your shoulders, like breathe through it. And that's how you know that you're out of alignment. The other thing is understanding your values. I think it's really important to do a values exercise. And I know some people roll their eyes at it and go, yeah, I've done it, but I never use that list of values. And that is a huge mistake because we have to understand what's most important to us and what we're going to stand for and what we're not going to stand for. And our values tell us that. So doing a values exercise, you can do it on your own. You can have Claude or ChatGPT interview you to do a deep dive. There's lots of coaches out there who work with you to understand your values. But if you are making decisions that are misaligned with your values, it's going to pull you out of coherence. So if integrity is something that is a high value to you, like you always want to live with integrity, but you work in an environment where you feel like you have to lie or cheat or cut corners to get ahead, then that's not going to have coherence because your value is integrity, but your work requires you to live outside of that value. You cannot be in coherence if you're not living in alignment with your values. So those are the two places I would start: values and where are you feeling things in your body.
I feel like after this, I will go to Claude and say, Claude, interview me until you find my top three values.
Yeah. Yes. 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 Do it. It will be amazing. And I think that you will gain insight and then ask Claude, how do I use this in my daily life? How do I use these values to live in coherence? And then see what happens, because you can even ask Claude to interview you around places that you are out of alignment with these values, and you can do this deep dive. And I think this is a powerful way to use AI to help you understand yourself better.
So for the listeners, if you are more kinesthetic, you feel into your body. If you are more of an analytic person, you
Yes.
start discussing this with robots. Whatever helps
Yes.
you, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
This is Kerry Siggins, ladies and gentlemen. The ownership mindset. It's out now, right there on Amazon. Go grab it. It's the ownership mindset. And there is the second one coming soon in September.
Yes.
How is that? How is that going? Are you done with the writing?
I'm done. I'm done. I'm just waiting for the ISBN number, which then I'll get the exact date. And I am so excited about this book launch. I work very closely with an organization called Real Leaders. And it's all around, it's a organization, support system, media company around supporting CEOs, presidents, founders of high impact companies. And so I created this entire video series and a course around how do you deliver feedback in a way that is kind, helpful, and direct and builds trust. And so I'm really excited about this book launch. I think it's going to be incredibly helpful for people. It's a fast read, it's easy to implement, and I'm really passionate about helping people communicate better. And the places that we flub our communication the most is in high stakes conversations where we have to give somebody constructive feedback. And we all need feedback to grow. And it's a huge opportunity, if we do it well as leaders, to really help our employees realize their potential.
That's cool. Uh, where can people find you? Where do you hang out?
I hang out a lot on LinkedIn. So you can follow me on LinkedIn and you can get all of my musings. I have a podcast called Reflect Forward, which Simon was on a couple of months ago. So you can find that on YouTube or your favorite podcast platform. And then kerrysiggins.com is my website, and everything is there. All my social media handles. You can access the podcast there. You can get the book there. You can book me to come and speak to you through my website. You can apply to be a guest on my podcast on my website. So really, that's where the heart of everything is.
Thank you so much, Kerry, for being on the show. And again,
Thank
guys, it is Kerry Siggins, the ownership mindset. Keep rolling, everyone.